Oh yeah, that's right. 2 movie reviews in 2 months. If we keep this up, we might actually get all the One Piece movies done by the end of this year. Probably not going to happen, but hey, we're on a good roll. And you know what? This is the perfect day to do this video because, hell man, it has been a Zoro-centered couple of weeks if you've been reading the manga. Okay, a lot of stuff has been going on with Zoro, and this, the 5th One Piece movie, is Zoro's movie. Took them long enough, right? Freaking 4 movies before they realized who the real protagonist of this story was. Okay, yeah. Is it any good? Yeah, well, it has a cool name, I'll tell you that much, it has a cool name. One Piece Movie 5, The Cursed Holy Sword, or The Curse of the Holy Sword, or The Curse of the Sacred Sword. You know, whichever, however, it sounds pretty cool, right? And here's the poster, alright? So, it's a deep, dark red color, and you got Luffy there in the center all bleeding, and then you got Zoro off to the side, and then some other dude we don't know. But, you know, it looks cool, it's about swords, and Zoro's here, it's his movie, right? Alright, so I gotta be straight up with you. When I started doing these movie reviews, pretty much right away, everyone was telling me which ones sucked and which ones were pretty good, and the 5th movie that we're gonna be discussing today usually fell into the, yeah, it sucks category. You can skip this one, Tekking. It's okay. Let's get to the 6th one. The 6th one is really good. I'm like, yeah, okay, I know, and I know it's taken me a while to get these videos out. I think the whole point of this series was I was starting this in like 2019 in the summer, right before Stampede came out, and the original plan was to go through all of the One Piece movies leading up to Stampede, so here we are at movie 5 like 2 years later, right? But we're getting there, and that's all that matters. But no, it's like everyone's like saying, yeah, movie 5, it's kind of sucks, it's boring, you know, just get to the 6th movie, which is really regarded by fans to be like the original One Piece movies. Out of those, the 6th one is considered to be the best. It can honestly rival like more recent ones, like, you know, that are like a lot more big theatrical releases like Film Z and Film Gold and Stampede and everything. In fact, I don't want to spoil anything from movie 6, but if you're going to compare movie 6 to Stampede or something, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, like, in terms of plot, I would say movie 6 is way better. I mean, yeah, Stampede had the big budget and everything like that, but movie 6 is pretty intense. Anyway, I'm going on and on about that. We'll get to movie 6 next, hopefully. But my point is that movie 5... I really didn't want to believe when people told me it was a bad movie. Alright, it was Zoro's movie, and it's titled, like, The Cursed Holy Sword. I'm like, that sounds awesome, right? Like, it can't be that bad, and I'm looking at some of the screenshots from the movie, and there's this dude with silver hair and a creepy green glowy sword, and that's the Cursed Holy Sword, clearly, and I'm like, that looks cool, and then I see scenes like this with the red moon overhead, and like, oh, that's a nice little set piece, okay, they're gonna do stuff with this, right? Right? So, One Piece Movie 5 was released on March 6, 2004. Something of a side note that you probably have noticed so far going through all these movies, they seem to always be released in March. In fact, every single movie up until this point has been released in March. And here's a little bit of a timeline when all the One Piece movies were released, and for a good solid decade there, not only were they all released in the same month of March, they were released every single year. All the way down to 2009 with the release of Strong World. Now, Strong World was not released in March, it was released in December of 2009, but still, look at that. 10 years straight, a One Piece movie every single year. And that was, of course, the era when I wasn't really watching One Piece or reading One Piece or anything like that, unless you count the 4Kids dub, which, you know, not a lot of people do. In the last decade, though, we've only gotten 4 One Piece movies, with, you know, there's being like a 3-year gap between Z and Gold, and then another 2-year gap in between Gold and Stampede. Looking at this chart, I would assume the next One Piece movie would probably come out maybe next year, late next year in 2022, something like that, but that's just conjecture. Anyway, it's kind of interesting to think that, you know, One Piece was getting theatrical releases every single year for a good long while, which is also the reason most of these movies, you know, haven't gotten an official dub or distribution all over the world, and most people don't even really know about them, so yeah, that makes sense, right? Anyway, so One Piece Movie 5 5 starts off on an actually very, very grim note. It starts with this island being ransacked by pirates, okay? And these are the kind of pirates, not like the Straw Hats. These are more of the typical, like, burn everything down, mateys! Kill everything and find everyone! Or, kill everyone and find everything! You know, that was the basic premise of these pirates, okay? So they're raiding the town, and then we have the mysterious silvered hair man that we see on the cover and everything like that. So it's like, ooh, he's probably gonna do something cool, right? And he's trying to escape with this woman through the town, trying to get away from the pirates, and he's being chased by them, and so he runs into an old, creepy, abandoned temple on the edge of town, and the sky's all dark and spooky, and there's lightning in the background, and this very ominous music is playing in the background. It's kind of similar to the way that the first movie began with, you know, the first movie had a lot of faults in and of itself, but the first movie started off with that really grisly scene with that pirate ship just getting demolished, you know, so it's something similar to that. So he arrives at this temple, and the man finds a sarcophagus in the center of the temple, which, you know, this is going well, right? Here's an island, a temple, a sacred area out in the middle of nowhere in the Grand Line, and there's like this sarcophagus in there. So I'm like, oh, cool. Is he gonna like awaken like a mummy swordsman from like 800 years ago or something? He's gonna climb out and pick up the sword and like slay our enemies. Ugh! I'm like, that's gonna be cool, right? So no, there's no mummies or zombies inside of the tomb. No, instead it is just a sword. A really cool looking sword that glows green. Green and red. That's one thing you gotta know about going into this movie. Green and red. So Christmas colors for days. So anyway, the silvered hair man, who I will just be referring to Saga from here on out, mostly because that's his name, Saga, pulls the sword out of the tomb and uses it to slay all of the pirates in actually an extraordinarily grisly scene. There's a moment where he takes the sword, and it is in silhouette, so you don't get to see everything. It's kind of similar to when, like, Arlong shot Bellemere, but there was a scene where he takes the sword and literally slices one of the pirates straight down vertically, and you see him, like, rip right through flesh and just rip apart. You know, it's pretty gruesome, honestly, there. Now, the sword is clearly evil and is possessing him. I'm saying this now just so you understand. I mean, it's made pretty clear as soon as he picks the thing up and it glows green and then his eyes glow red and he starts laughing maniacally like, yeah, but, yeah, the sword is evil and is the true villain of this entire movie and is possessing this guy. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's not that great, mostly because when you take that premise, you know, character finds a cursed object and it, you know, possesses him to just commit acts of bloodlust just for the sake of bloodlust because it's cursed. Ooh, kind of takes away the agency of the character, kind of makes him a little bit, you know, boring, but whatever. Okay, let's just roll with it. Alright, so that was about a year ago that all that stuff happened. Now we're cutting to the present day, where the Straw Hats are on the Grand Line, and they've actually arrived at the same island called Asuka Island, okay? And the reason they're there, stuffing their faces, is because Nami's heard about this grand treasure, the 7-starred sword, which is apparently supposed to be the most beautiful, gorgeous sword in all of the Grand Line, and it's going to be worth, you know, millions and billions of berries and everything, so obviously Nami is super excited for this. Most of the Straw Hats are in town just eating, whereas Usopp and Zoro stayed on the Mary to perform repairs. Well, Usopp is performing repairs, Zoro is just kind of snoozing when all of a sudden a Tonto just comes out of nowhere! That was cool. That was an awesome scene where Zoro's just sleeping up against the mast, and then out in the jungle, like, you know, miles and miles away, somebody just throws a freaking short sword right at him, and Zoro, without even waking up, is just and then just dodges the damn sword. So the sword's hilt actually has his name, Zoro, etched into it, and Zoro immediately recognizes on, you know, what the sword is, where it came from, and who it belongs to. So he takes the sword and he just leaves the Mary without even talking to Usopp or telling him where he's going or anything like that. Zoro throughout this entire movie, and one of the reasons why I can definitely see why people were saying it wasn't that good, the way he acts and the way he doesn't, like, tell the crew about what he's doing or his plans or just how easy he is to sway from another side. It's a little bit weird, okay? So we'll get to that, alright? Anyway, Zoro walks through the jungle and he encounters 3 badass Marines. Bismarck with iron steel armor. That's right, iron steel, the best kind of steel. Then we have Boo Kong, not to be confused with Boo Jack, who was an enemy during the second movie, Clockwork Island Adventure. Boo Jack is a big guy that has, like, you know, spike weapons in order to fight. Boo Kong in this movie is a big guy that uses spiked weapons in order to fight. Keep in mind that difference. And then you have Toma. Out of these three, Toma is the most interesting, and that's to say that he actually has the most dialogue and a little bit of character development involving him. Bismarck and Bukong, you can just kind of push off to the side. They really don't do much up until the very end of the movie when they have their, fights against the Straw Hats, and even then they really don't do much. Sanji defeats Bismarck in 10 seconds, and Robin defeats Bukong in 9.5 seconds. So, not really going to be a lot of build-up for these characters. It's okay if you just push them aside. Anyway, they're all members of the Marines, right? And they're all wearing the Marine get-ups and everything. They're a little bit more stylized, but they're clearly Marines. And so Toma states that, our master is waiting for you, Zoro. Come and see him. So they bring him out into this Marine dojo in the middle of the jungle where a bunch of Marine soldiers are just, like, hypnotically practicing, kendo, like, the way of the sword and everything like that. None of them seem really troubled by the fact that pirate hunter Zoro, with a bounty of 60 million at this point, because this movie takes place right around the time Skypiea was going on, so Luffy has the bounty of 100 million, Zoro has the bounty of 60 million. None of them seem troubled by that or even notice it's him. Instead of they just do this really cool, fancy entryway, like Zoro is a VIP guest or whatever. And so he walks through and he approaches the silvered hair man, Saga, and gives him back the sword with a line of dialogue saying that, I give you my life. It's revealed that Saga and Zoro actually know each other. They trained at the same dojo at Shimosuke Village way back in the East Blue as children. So, right, like Kuina. Okay, I'm just gonna bring this up now. A lot of this movie focuses on Saga and Zoro's childhood growing up in the same village, Shimosuke, and training and everything like that. And we know it's the same village because they're wearing the exact same gi with the same symbol, which we actually now know is the clan Shimosuke symbol, so that's an interesting callback. But the point is, throughout this entire movie that focuses on Zoro, or is supposed to focus on Zoro, and it's about a cursed holy sword and the past with Saga, Kuina is not seen, mentioned, or even indirectly referenced. Little bit strange there. Now, I know that when Kuina died, Zoro was a little kid, and so when he started training with Saga, I think that was a few years later, right? Zoro trained at the dojo until I think he was 17 years old, and then he left, alright? So I'm sure in all those years, there were plenty of other students that came and went from the dojo that Koshiro trained. I guess Kozaburo Shimosuke trained as well, because he was the old man that was still living in the village. Anyway, we're not really talking about him. People would come and go and train in the village for all these different reasons. Saga, for instance, wanted to train to become a Marine swordsman, and Zoro wanted to train to become the greatest swordsman in the world because of his promise to Kuina, right? And I'm sure there's other people that had other reasons there. And this was long before Zoro became a pirate, even before he became a bounty hunter. So, it's like, oh, Saga, you want to wield your sword for justice, and I want to wield my sword to be the greatest, and, we'll train and we'll do all that. I just find it a little bit strange that in all these backstories or anything, Kuina's never mentioned, because that was such like the impetus for Zoro's goal to begin with, and I don't think she's ever mentioned a single time, which is a little weird. In fact, a lot of times in this movie, it seems to imply that like Kuina never existed, and it was like Saga was like the replacement here. Like it's Saga and Zoro's bond that really led to all this rather than Kuina. I understand it's a movie. It takes place in a parallel dimension, I guess. I guess you could, take it that way, but there's other ways of doing this. One such way I thought of is, hey, what if you would have had a situation where it was Zoro, Kuina, and Saga all training together on the island? It's a movie. It's a parallel dimension. Who cares if you warp around the timeline a little bit? That way you could still have the backstory with Zoro make sense canonically, and you could just introduce another character. Kinda similar to the whole Luffy and Ace training on Dawn Island, and we thought it was originally just Luffy and Ace, and then Sabo was introduced later, so maybe some deal like that. And then after Kuina died, maybe that was the thing that inspired not just Zoro to become the greatest swordsman, but also inspired Saga, if they were like all friends growing up or something, or they had a scene where they were like troubled by Kuina's death, and they decided to train to be even, to live up to her memory and stuff like that. Maybe something along that line would have worked better. It's a little bit jarring. At any rate, Saga is stricken with extreme pain, and Zoro asks him, hey, what's wrong, Saga? Are you gonna be alright? And he's like, Zoro, I'm in pain. I'm stricken with a incurable illness. Oh, it's okay. We have a reindeer doctor on our ship. I can go get him. No, Zoro. That won't help. There's only one thing that can cure me. In that village down the road there, out in the middle of the mountains, they have these 3 gems, or they look like Dragon Balls. Just roll with it. Anyway, there are these 3 orbs, okay? And those are the things that are the cause of my illness. So what I'm gonna need you to do is go down there and take these orbs from the townspeople, from the villagers, by force if necessary, because they're sort of treasured objects. They don't want to give them up. But get them back, and then dump them down in a well, and then I'll get better. And Zoro just kinda goes along with this. He asks very few questions about this situation, and he just goes along with this. He's like, okay, I'll just go down to that village down there? Alright, you want me to, rough up some people and get the orbs and then take them and then throw them down a well so you can be cured from your weird disease? Yeah, okay, makes sense. You and me are bros, man. You and me have trained together in the same village for years. A lot of what you just said doesn't make any sense, but I'll go do it anyway. Alright. Now, you could say, hey, wait a second, Tekking. Isn't the whole point of this movie about a cursed holy sword that possesses people? And yes, the whole premise is that. And yes, Saga is possessed. The 3 Marine captains, Toma, Bismarck, and Bukong, they're all possessed. All of the Marines training in the dojo are possessed. But I don't think it's ever expressly shown that Zoro is possessed. We don't see his eyes glow red or anything in this movie. At least I don't think they do. I went through this whole thing. I don't think they glow red. Maybe I'm wrong, but whatever. There is even a scene later on in the movie where Zoro touches the 7-star sword, and it's like trying to possess him, but he like lets it go, and he's able to like resist the power. In fact, Toma even says that he's able to resist the power a little bit because of his strong willpower than the others. So if this kid is able to resist the effects of this sword a little bit, you can't tell me Zoro would just be easily swooned by this thing. So if it's not the 7-star sword that's doing this, then Zoro is just like, yeah, okay, there's this guy I used to train with, and we're friends and everything like that. We have a bond, but it just seems odd that this story doesn't make any sense, and he just goes along with it, and on top of that, does not tell the Straw Hats anything. Oh yeah, the Straw Hats. I guess I should probably get back to them to see what they're doing. So after eating in town, the Mary is being chased after by Drake, the same dude that was chasing after them last time in the 4th movie, the guy that works under Jonathan at Navarone. In order to escape, they manage to get launched into the air again, and they land in the center of the island. There's a giant hippo, rhino, sea creature that wants to, like, make love to the Mary. That's a plot thread that pops back in at the end of the movie, so whatever, just keep that noted for right now. Okie dokie. Anyway, they're sailing around in the middle of the island when they come across the aforementioned village that Saga wants Zoro to get the orbs from. There's a woman there named Maya, who is the same woman from the beginning of the movie that has some connection to Saga, and she's swimming around in this pool, and she takes out these orbs, or Dragon Balls, whatever you want to call them, and presents them to an altar, and she's like praying at the altar. When the Mary rounds the corner, she sees the pirate flag, obviously from the whole, death and devastation the last pirate crew did when they arrived. She freaks out and raises the red alarm for the entire village. Pirates! Pirates are coming! Now, this is actually a really cool scene, because this is just a tiny little village out in the mountains, but this guy right here, Lakos, is sort of like the captain of the guard, and he notices right away pirates are coming, and so he mobilizes the whole village to get ready for an attack. And so they have a storehouse, and they got weapons, everyone picks up swords and spears, and, hide the women and children and the elderly, we'll take care of this, we'll fight off the pirates. I just like that scene, because, that shows that, like, okay, pirates attacked, we're ready to go, let's mobilize, okay? So Nami, Robin, Chopper, and Sanji arrive at the village. Usopp and Luffy get separated from the rest of the crew, and they're off doing other stuff. We'll get back to them in just a moment. But anyway, they arrive at this village that's, covered in all these ancient ruins and temples, once again, harkening back to Skypiea, which is the most recent arc in the manga and the anime at the time. So Robin gets really interested in that, so she starts to look at all the, the scriptures and everything, and the etchings and the markings on the tombs and all that stuff. It's a little bit of a misunderstanding at first, but they eventually come to a reasoning of like, hey, we are pirates, but we're not the, like, burn your village down kind of pirates. We're the cool pirates. We got a reindeer as a doctor that can transform, so they understand each other there. It's a little bit kind of iffy at first, but at any rate, it doesn't really matter, because then the Marines just raid the village out of nowhere and start attacking everybody, as well as Zoro. Zoro's there too! Oh no, Zoro, what are you doing? Maybe you could explain to your crew, your Nakama, the people you've been traveling with for several months that you trust like a family, on what's going on with Saga and why these Marines are ransacking this village, and why are you stealing their treasured objects from antiquity? Waiting for it, Zoro. I'm waiting for you to, like, explain this. To go up to Nami or Sanji or, somebody and being like, yeah, hey guys, how you doing? Hey, look, I'm running an errand for an old friend. He's up there at that marine dojo on the hill over there. He's apparently really sick, and apparently I have to grab these orbs and throw them down a well in order to negate the magic or something. I don't really know what's going on. Anyway, I'll be back at the Mary by supper. Make sure you cook some good stuff, some meat. I want some sake. Just, meet you back there later. He doesn't even do that. He just walks in, actually fights Sanji, actually cuts Sanji. No duh. They actually fight. It's scenes like that I really have to question, like, is he possessed by the sword? Once again, I don't think he is, and I think his willpower would be able to resist that. But even though Sanji and Zoro, they have conflict every now and then, I never thought it would actually get to the point where Zoro is like, I have to do this for a friend. So I'm gonna slice you up, my friend. They're not like on perfect terms. Zoro and Sanji aren't like besties or anything like that, but they're part of the same pirate crew or whatever. I mean, it's a cool scene, because you see Zoro and Sanji literally fighting, like seriously, kind of similar to how Luffy and Zoro fought at Whiskey Peak seriously for that little while there. So you see Sanji dancing around with the kicks and everything, blocking Zoro's arms and hitting his swords and everything, and there's one scene where Sanji even blocks Zoro's onigiri, kicks him right here in his arms, and Zoro has this really cool line that's like, Sanji, before I end this, let me just tell you, when you fight a swordsman, you have to fight with, like, every ounce of your being. You have to be laser focused on the battle. And then, boom, he slices Sanji and defeats him, while all the other Straw Hats, like, Chopper and Nami are in the background, like, what is going on here? Why? And so Zoro goes over and then takes the orbs from Maya and then just leaves with the Marines without ever so much as an explanation on why he was there. Like, does this mean you're leaving the crew? What's going on here? We have no idea. Are you evil, Zoro? Are you a clone? He just leaves, okay? And so the Straw Hats are there just completely bamboozled, right? Anyway, now we cut back over to see what's going on with Luffy and Usopp while this is all happening, okay? So Luffy and Usopp actually stumble upon the Marine Dojo, and it's actually a cool scene because it's like right at sunset. It's kind of like, dusk outside, so the sun's just going down. It's really creepy. And they meet Saga there. And Saga, recognizes Luffy as a member of the Straw Hats, as the captain, and he's got a 100 million berry bounty. It's a funny scene when Usopp wanders into the Marine Dojo, and he's like, I don't think we should be here, Luffy. These are the Marines. And then right there next to the front door, there's Luffy's bounty poster, and, he rips it down like, oh, crap! And then he sees Zoro's bounty poster, and Usopp's like, oh, crap! Oh, double crap! And he rips that one down, too. So that was a funny scene. Of course, all the Marines are brainwashed, so it doesn't matter anyway. But anyway, Saga recognizes him, and he's like, oh, you're the pirate that apparently defeated Crocodile. And you know what? That's an interesting kind of piece, because we do not find out what Saga's Marine rank was. We know he was a member of the Marines before he was possessed by the sword and he lived on the island and everything. We don't find out a rank. That would have been kind of interesting. Actually, it would have been kind of interesting to find out a rank on that 7-star sword, now that I think about it, With a movie focused around the cursed holy sword, and swords are divided up into Meito ranks, and cursed swords like the Sandai Katetsu already exist in One Piece. You think it would be more sword-centered in the lore, like sword lore, which is a fun thing to just say, sword lore, but it's really not. I mean, we do get sword lore on the Shiseiken, the 7-star sword, but wow, that gets a little wackadoodle in and of itself, so we'll get to that when we get to that. Anyway, the whole point of this is at some point, Saga needs to have a sacrifice or some bullshit, and he sees Luffy, and he's like, oh, right, pirate worth 100 million berries, you're probably going to be worth the sacrifice, and so Saga and Luffy start fighting, and it's an interesting battle, because, Saga uses a sword, and that would be Luffy's natural weakness, so you'd think there'd be a lot more stuff involved. There's really not, because this is before Luffy knows hockey or anything. And, this is like, remember the scene at Marineford when Luffy was about to bazooka Mihawk and then just has that flash of observation of his arms just getting cut off? That would be cool if we had, like, references to, like, Luffy fighting a bladed weapon and him being weak against it, but never really seems to come up, honestly. In fact, Saga just uses a technique called Yokukazan, which is like a green fire flame ball attack, and it's pretty cool. He like rakes the Shiseiken against the ground and fires off a green flame wave. It sometimes burns Luffy, other times characters can get hit by it and resist it, just with like slight burns on their bodies. So a cursed holy sword that can fire green flames at people, not as impressive as it really sounds. Anyway, Luffy does end up losing the fight. He gets launched by one of these green flame waves over the cliff, and it kind of dissipates, and he's over the cliff, and he just kind of falls down. There's a scene with Usopp that's pretty funny, because in the background, Usopp is standing next to Toma, and, you know, Usopp's like, Luffy's pretty strong. After all, I'm the one that trained him. You know, it took him a while, but he kind of almost achieved 50% of my battle power. And so Usopp's going on, bragging about what Usopp does, and then Toma's like, oh, wow, so that means you're pretty strong too, right, Usopp-san? And Usopp's like, yep, I'm the strongest guy. Oh, no, actually, I'm coming, Luffy! And then he just jumps over the cliff after Luffy. So, yeah. Something else I will mention that is pretty cool about this movie, there's a few moments that are similar to movie 4 with the 3D kind of tracking shots that they do. It doesn't happen very often. The scene when Zoro approaches the Marines, or initially, after the knife gets thrown at him, there's like this weird 3D tracking shot where it like zooms into Zoro, and that's okay. But one thing I did want to mention is the way that the battle choreography works in this movie, how people fight with swords, okay, whenever we see that. It's a lot more realistic and like real time. So a lot of times in One Piece, and a lot of times in anime in general, when you have characters fighting with swords, you'll have moments where they're like, you know, they really dramatically unsheath the sword, and there's like really dramatic close-ups, and just like, whoo, you know, stuff like that, you know. It's not really so much like that in the movie. It's more of just like real time, where they unsheath the swords, and then the choreography is just like an actual sword battle. I mean, it's, you know, dramatized a bit. It's built up because it's anime after all, so you have like a little bit more of like Matrix timing and stuff, you know. But overall, it's like a lot more like a regular sword fight, where there's not a lot of really dramatic close-ups, or like, you're just like, this is my ultimate attack, Itoryu Ogi! Actually, now that I think about it, there's disappointingly not that many moments where Zoro uses, like, his named attacks in this movie in that regard. Actually, other than, like, his standards, like Onigiri and stuff, I don't really know if he busts out anything, like, really notable. He doesn't use Lion's Song or anything like that. Even the final slash at the end of the movie that he uses to take out Saga, spoiler alert, is not a named attack. So, little bit weird there. Anyway, though, I think it's just taken up for that because it's more of like a standard, like, swordsman kind of, you know, fighting sort of deal, right? At any rate, that's cool. So, I have achieved the rank of Yubashiri Coin Toss. You know, okay, so whatever. Anyway, this gets to the part of the movie where, where did we leave off? Oh yeah, this gets to the part of the movie where Usopp and Luffy run around a cave for 5 minutes. Yep. A moment where they land in this cave that's filled with traps, you know, like Luffy will pull a string and like a giant boulder will come down, or spikes will come down from the wall. Spiked walls, how fast? I don't know. Faster than haunted house spike walls, but not quite as slow as mad scientist spike walls. Whatever. The entire time this is going on, Luffy is a freaking just like, he's insane. He's just running around this cave, triggering all these traps, seemingly on purpose, and he's like, man, this is so much fun, Usopp! I pulled this string and a giant boulder's gonna crush us! This is awesome! Oh, look at these spikes! Oh, arrows! This is so cool! This goes on, and on, and on. I mean, it's cut with, like, we'll cut back to see what, like, Sanji and the other Straw Hats are doing at the village, or we'll cut back to Saga or whatever, but I timed this. The time Usopp and Luffy spend fucking around in this cave is, like, 5 minutes, alright? In a movie about Zoro and a cursed sword, and, like, you know, like, okay, we need to have a moment where they're just having fun running around various caverns. That's cool, right? I'm like, alright, sure, fine. Anyway, back at the village, the villagers are kind of like explaining to the group, like Sanji and Robin. Robin is kind of looking at the temple carvings and everything, and we get kind of like the lore about what's really going on here. At the same time, a well bursts, like an underwater vein explodes in the village, revealing Usopp and Luffy that were running through these caves, and they finally got out, and so now they've regrouped with all of the Straw Hats. Okay, so all of the Straw Hats, sans Zoro, are currently together, and we have Maya and her grandmother Izaya explain the whole backstory of the Shiseiken. You know, what is the seven-starred sword? Why is it cursed? You know, where did it come from? What is with Saga? You know, and Zoro, why is he listening to them? Like, how's this all happening? Okay, so Get ready for this! This story is like the most One Piece story I've ever heard, right? This was like penned by Eiichiro Oda himself, okay? Alright, so the 7-starred sword was given to the king of this island by God. Yeah, already we're doing great, right? Yeah. Okay, so, you know, it's funny because religion doesn't really come up that much in One Piece. Like, obviously, it came up in Skypiea because Eneru claimed to be a god, but he wasn't. He was just a Skypiean or a Brickin that had the Goro Goro no Mi, right? But he had a god complex, right? The Umibozus, like the sea gods and stuff, are mentioned every now and then. Obviously, you know, Brook's whole existence, you know, proves that there is an afterlife and souls are a thing and everything like that. But now we've just straight up explained. No, the 7-starred gods of Asuka, they exist. They're a real thing. We see their magic barrier powers in this movie, and praying to them lends special, like, holy effects like you're a damn cleric or something. These gods are real in the One Piece world, okay? Well, anyway, the god presented this sword to the king of the island, right? And then, so you flash forward a few years, and then there was this beautiful princess, all right? And then there were these 3 suitors that wanted the princess for, you know, their individual hands in marriage. So, obviously, they wanted to get the sword to give to the princess and, like, present it as, like, a marriage offering, and then that's how everything would go. Well, so anyway, because they all wanted to marry this girl, of course, the 3 men all start a massive war with tremendous amounts of bloodshed and death and just wipe out the entire island just bathed in blood. And because of all this bloodshed, the Shiseiken, the 7-star sword, that's how it got cursed by the gods. You know, all the bloodlust and death that was wrought over the conquest to find this sword has, like, tainted it and turned it into a sword that possesses the user and gives them an insatiable bloodlust, okay? And so, in order to quell this bloodlust, the princess actually sacrificed herself, and in the process, sealed the Shiseiken away in the tomb that we see at the beginning of the movie, and every 100 years, the seal kind of weakens, so you have to have a priestess, in this case, Maya, who, by the way, this whole thing is a reference to the Mayan civilization, you know, with the architecture and everything, as well as just, you know, her name being Maya. Anyway, every 100 years, a priestess has to perform the ritual to take the orbs, put them in the 3 towers, pray to the gods of Asuka, create a barrier, seal the evil bloodlust powers of the Shiseiken for another century when you do it again. It's basically the plot of every single JRPG ever. You start off the game, and it's like, well, I can't wait to go to the annual Cursed Object Sealing Festival. It only happens every 100 years. Oh no, a giant ship is appearing in the sky to steal the ancient cursed object. We must seal it away by gathering the 3 elemental orbs from all over the planet and then chanting a power to create a barrier. Yeah, it's happened before. It's a pretty basic plot in that regard, and it doesn't seem anything One Piece centric, but that's what we're doing now, so that's what we're doing now, alright? Anyway, the Straw Hats all then realize, like, oh, okay, so what we basically are having on our hands here is that Saga was a cool dude. In fact, Saga used to be Maya's fiance before he went all crazy and, like, bloodthirsty and everything like that. Honestly, I think this could be solved just by getting the dude some eye drops, really. He's got some serious red eye problems here. It's springtime, you got some irritation, whatever. So Saga and Maya used to be betrothed, and, you know, he was living on this island for a while, and it was when the pirates attacked that he realized the only way for him to save the island and Maya was to take out the sword possesses him, and now it's trying to push him to do some sacrifice deals so it can awaken its true power when the blood moon rises and everything like that. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here, okay? And Zoro is the childhood friend of Saga, so that's why he's doing everything that's happening right now, okay? So it's an interesting story, if nothing else. It really has nothing to do with One Piece, but, you know, the way it's animated with the different artwork and everything, I mean, it's cool to look at, but other than that, it's just really jarring. It kind of takes you out of the whole series in that particular instance. Like, what, we're dealing with literal gods and magic powers and everything now, and, like this sword was like a godly divine item. Like, oh wow, that thing that thing must be definitely a Saijo Owazamono grade sword then, right? That's something maybe we could have delved into. I would have liked to just delve into the more idea of it like being a cursed sword to begin with. Also, by the way, Zoro has a cursed sword too, the Sandai Kitetsu. Maybe instead of getting like the gods of Asuka that have never been mentioned up until this point, maybe you could have had it like, yeah, Kitetsu was the famous swordsmith that crafted the Kitetsu blades, and they're cursed for that reason. And there was this other famous sword master, let's say his name was, I don't know, Muramasa. Muramasa is a swordsmith that actually existed in our world, at least I think he did. It might have just been legend. It's one of those Robin Hood things where I'm not 100% sure if they actually existed, although I think he did. It was mentioned that like Muramasa was this famed swordsmith, and he created swords that could not be sheathed until they tasted blood. So when you are talking about a lot of cursed blades in fiction, Muramasa is sort of the basis for all of that, right? So I don't know, just say, okay, yeah, there was Kitetsu, and then there was Muramasa, and Muramasa was this other really infamous swordsmith that created the Shiseiken, and then Kitetsu created the Kitetsu blades, right? Not even referenced, not even acknowledged that Zoro has a cursed sword. He doesn't bring it up or anything like, oh, you have a cursed sword, Saga. Well, I have a cursed blade too. They don't go into detail on why the Shiseken's curse is like maybe a little bit different from the Kitetsu's curse, or maybe they could have delved into more information on what even makes a cursed sword cursed. Law has a cursed sword as well, Kikoku, Demon's Whale, but that, you know, obviously Law hasn't been, you know, shown in the story yet, hasn't been introduced. They could have just done that. I mean, and once again, why not? I mean, it's a movie, it's not really going to be connecting back to the One Piece story in any major way in the manga. So you could have dropped some sword lore on like cursed blades in the Kitetsu or something. I think it would have made a lot more sense than getting gods and stuff involved, but okay, why not? Let's just roll with it. Anyway, they come up with the master plan here of like, oh, the blood moon's gonna rise tonight at the apex or whatever, and the sacrifice will begin, so we gotta find the 3 orbs, and then we gotta bring them to the 3 towers, and then Maya has to dress up in a really cool priestess outfit, and then pray to the gods, and then the barrier's created, and then everything will be copacetic, Saga will be freed from the sword, and everything will be happy, happy, fun time. Now, the question is, how are you gonna get the 3 orbs? Well, if they were thrown down the well. We even saw Zoro throw them down the well, which is why, of course, the 5 minutes of Luffy and Usopp running through the caverns, wait a second, they have the orbs! And not only that, they were running around those caverns for so damn long, they found secret shortcuts to every single one of the 3 towers throughout the entire island. That is such a quinky-dink, isn't it, right? It's almost like it was kind of like manufactured for drama, like, we have to get to the 3 towers, but they're so far apart, how are we going to possibly get there? And then Luffy and Usopp literally burst out of the ground, and Robin's like, yeah, this is an underground well that literally leads to all 3 towers. And the old grandma Isaiah's like, what? I didn't know that was a thing! Well, hundreds and hundreds of years of performing this ritual, and we never found out there was a secret shortcut to all of the towers. Well, ain't that just a, you know, also Isaiah does have a funny little scene where most of the movie she's this hunched over old grandma, and there's a scene where it finds out she's actually super, super tall, so she like springs out of nowhere, like she's a member of the long limb tribe out of nowhere, and it's like, whoa, okay, like that actually was like a whoa moment, like a funny moment for me. I actually did not see that coming, so that was pretty interesting there. Anyway, the Straw Hats all break up into different groups in order to go and take the orbs and the Dragon Balls, put them into individual towers for the ritual. So Nami teams up with Chopper, Usopp teams up with Robin, and Sanji teams up with Lakos, the village guard captain, okay? It's just like, okay, Lakos, you use a sword, right? Well, I use like this meat cleaver axe thing. Whatever, close enough. You're with me, big guy. You're gonna be the Zoro for like the next 20 minutes until he rejoins the Straw Hat. So, Lakos for Straw Hat! I tell you, this man right here, I connect with him on a level. Mostly because he's got like a little mole on the side of his face. And I have a mole on the side of my face. This is my mole. It's my defining characteristic. You go, Lakos. Alright, so they all send off to different areas on the island, and you get really cool One Piece soundtrack playing where they beat down all of the brainwashed marine zombies. It sounds way cooler than it is. In fact, that should really be the tagline of this movie. It sounds way cooler than it actually is. Like I said, Sanji defeats Bismarck in 10 seconds. I counted, right? There's literally a scene where he beats down all of the Marine soldiers, then Bismarck starts running at Sanji like, I have steel iron armor! You will be unable to kick through my armor! And Sanji just kicks him square in the face, like, boom! Through a wall. KO. Knocked out. Like, probably should have wore armor around your face there, buddy. All right, that was pretty funny, Sanji. You get the laugh track on that one. Then we have Robin fighting against Robin and Usopp fighting against Bukong, and Usopp, he opens up the fight with an attack to kind of weaken everybody. He's like, "You face the mighty Usopp." All right, Robin, you take it away from here. I've softened them up for you. It's all you, girl. So Robin, of course, busts out her Hana Hana no Mi. And you know how, like, a lot of times in the story you could say that, Robin got nerfed, meaning that, like, she was super powerful with her Hana Hana no Mi in Alabasta, and then when she joined the Straw Hats, her power doesn't seem quite as impressive anymore? Well, this movie certainly says otherwise. If nothing else, this was an awesome moment where Robin was like, oh, I could just use my powers to immobilize all of the Marines like that. And she does, and then this idiot giant dude with the spike clubs is on top of this mountain or this top of this building. I could just use my hands to like tickle him and then hit him with his own damn clubs and then knock him into the freaking ground. And she does. 9.5 seconds. 9.5 seconds. Robin, you are savage, if nothing else. And then we cut over to Nami and Chopper, where they're not even fighting against Toma, because he actually has another part in a second we'll get to. So they're just going up against random marine zombies. And so all that Nami does there is take out her Climax Attack and just hit them with a staff and knock them over a bridge. And so, there you go. So, you know how it's like in most One Piece movies, typically, we have like the big bad guy and then like the 3 henchmen. This happens a lot in Dragon Ball movies too. This happens a lot in anime movies in general, where we have, I'm the bad villain and I have these 3 henchmen that probably won't do very much, but will serve as the enemies at the end of the story. Can we have like a moment where we actually get more character development with the henchmen? Yeah, we do, later on in One Piece films, but not for a while yet. At any rate, so now we cut over to Toma and Zoro, where this is the scene where Zoro, like, touches the Shiseiken, like Saga leaves it in the temple. I would assume he leaves it there because maybe the Shiseiken is trying to possess Zoro because he's a better swordsman. We also find out a little bit more about their backstory here, where after they grew up and left the dojo, respectively, Saga did go to join the Marines, and Zoro was a bounty hunter at this point, so they weren't technically enemies yet. And there was a scene where Zoro was bounty hunting some pirates, and one of the pirates had a pistol pointed right at his head, and he's just like, it's over, pirate hunter Zoro. And then all of a sudden, Saga shows up and saves him, and then there's a scene where they're fighting on a ship. I'm not really sure if it meant, like, Zoro was teaming up with the Marines very briefly to help Saga out. That would have been cool if we got a little bit more of these flashbacks to establish their character development or a little bit more. We pretty much just have these random scenes where they're training in the dojo and like, I'm gonna be a Marine! I'm gonna be the strongest! Okay, best friends! And now we cut to a scene where they're kind of adults and fighting, but it seems just kind of empty. Like, there's not much to it. Like, keep in mind, we are just getting introduced to Saga in this movie. We have no idea who this dude is. So if you want to establish that Saga and Zoro have, like, this deep-seated relationship, we're gonna need more than just, like, we're kids and we're gonna be the best swordsmen ever. You gotta give me a little bit more to work with here, right? Okay. Anyway, during when they were fighting on this pirate ship in the middle of a storm, Saga's arm gets crushed in the anchor chain, which is pretty grisly. I mean, I thought they were just gonna go with the thing, like, he loses an arm, but no, his arm literally gets crushed in the chain, and he has the moment where he's like, Zoro, you need to continue on. Carry on the dream. Carry on the hope. And so Zoro gets away, the giant explosion occurs, the pirate ship goes up in flames, and Zoro just assumes Saga's dead. He survives and he makes it to the island, but his right arm is paralyzed, and he's no longer able to wield a sword with his dominant arm, and so that's why he kind of retires to Asuka Island, meets Maya, and they fall in love, and then the whole Shiseiken thing happens, and that's when he gets possessed, okay? And that is pretty much all of the flashbacks we get involving Zoro and Saga, so if you're not, happy with that, well, that's all we get. Anyway, Zoro tries to touch the Shiseiken, and the aura kind of goes around him, but Zoro's able to drop it and kind of like resist it a little bit. Toma's there, and he states that I'm a little bit different from the other ones, I'm not as much of a one-note character as like Bismarck and Bukong is. I actually have a little bit of my free will left. So, Zoro-san, I want to fight you. I want to see what your powers are before I completely lose myself. Toma is probably my favorite character introduced here, even more so than Saga, because at least with Toma you get something. You get an idea of, like, this was just a young kid training in the Marines at this dojo with Saga, and then everybody gets brainwashed all of a sudden, and he kind of gets, like, half brainwashed, but he still has his own goals and his own ambitions, and he's actually, like, struggling with it. Like, you know, I'm gonna lose my sense of self, like, I've already come to terms with that, but before I do that, I want to experience, like, a true battle with you, Zoro. Also implying that Zoro is not brainwashed, because the way Toma implies it is like, you know, before I get brainwashed, I want to fight you, and it wouldn't make any sense for Toma to be like, before I get brainwashed, I want to fight another brainwashed person. So, you know, while I still have my will, my sense of self, let's fight. And so Zoro fights against him, and it's an interesting fight. Like I said, the choreography is also kind of very more realistic. Also, I just like the way Toma's sword looks. I mean, it's a pretty edgy sword, to use an example. It's the kind of item you would find in, like, I don't know, a Devil May Cry video game or something. It has, like, spikes and, like, a gem embedded in it. Like, this honestly should have been the demon cursed holy sword or whatever. This thing, I think, makes way more sense than this thing, but whatever. Anyway, Zoro and Toma fight. Saga interrupts the fight and kind of uses the complete brainwash mode, you know, the god cheat on Toma, and so he turns into a zombie, and then that's when Saga reveals, like, the red moon rises! I shall use my power. I thought Luffy could be a sacrifice, but he just wasn't up to it. So Zoro, you shall be the sacrifice. And so Saga and Zoro begin their fight as the last act of this movie is completely bathed in just red aura. And, you know, it does look cool. Once again, see the tagline of the movie, right? You know, it looks cool, but, Anyway, the fight continues, and it actually gets to the point where Saga does beat down Zoro with the combination of his power rising and with the, you know, the green flames and everything like that. There's even a scene where he's trying to reach for the Sandai Katetsu, and then Saga kicks it away. I thought, ooh, are we going to have a moment where, like, the curse of the Sandai involves the curse of the Shiseken or something? Like, you have a cursed sword, I'll use my cursed sword to slice down your cursed sword. Cursed sword? Your cursed sword. Nope, nothing like that. Saga just kicks it away and stabs Zoro and starts draining his aura or blood energy or something. I don't even freaking know. Anyway, at this point, Luffy shows up along with the grandma, and Maya begins the ritual to seal everybody. The 3 orbs are all placed in the correct areas. Chopper shows up and fights against Toma in Horn Point. I guess that's pretty cool. At any rate, the final battle of this movie, even though it is Zoro's movie, you still gotta have it be Luffy, right? Because he's Luffy. So Luffy begins to fight against the cursed influence Saga as the curse slowly begins to warp him more and more. And by warp him more and more, I mean, like, he kind of goes into a crazy transformation where he gets tattoos on his arm, like the curse mark from Naruto, and he regains use of his right arm, and his ponytail kind of comes undone, and his hair just kind of, like, grows a bit. You know, for a sword that can, like, possess people, that is created by a god and then was, like, corrupted by the bloodlust of man, you think the transformation would be something cooler. But no, it's just like his hair gets crazy and his eyes glow more red and he gets a tattoo, and that's it. Alright, anyway, Luffy beats the shit out of him, knocks him down, and the Shiseiken explodes into dust. Movie's over, right? Wrong, because the sword has now fused with Saga, and it's strong enough now to break apart the barrier, and the Dragon Balls shatter, and Maya's like, no, Saga, why? And then this is the moment where truly cursed Saga, which now goes into another, oh, okay, this is another transformation. Alright. I thought that transformation was the only transformation. This is the real transformation, where he's gonna turn into, like, a demon god or something, right? Well, he gets a cross on his chest that glows green. Okay. Alright, I'll take what I can get at this point. Alright, so, the fight is on, and, we have a moment now where Zoro gets back up, and he kind of talks, because the Shiseiken, he doesn't have that anymore, so Zoro just picks up a random katana laying around the battlefield and tosses it over to Saga, like, Saga, if you're still in there, you're a swordsman. You fight with a katana, damn it. Tosses him the sword. Alright, Zoro, let's do this. And so, the final battle between the two, it's a cool standoff moment. I'll give it that much. You got Luffy off to the side with Maya and Izaya, and they're just kind of standing there, just kind of like, this is it. Zoro, you will be the man who will become the greatest swordsman in the world. You can do it! And so, it's like the Wild West scene, right? Like, you have a moment where, like, close-up of Saga, close-up of Zoro, wide shot, another close-up of Saga, another close-up of Zoro, and then he jumps into the air, and he takes out his one sword style, and slice! Slices Saga, his best friend that we've never heard about up until this point, down! Saga hits the ground, and the scar on his chest kind of dissipates all of the curse power for some reason, and Saga is freed from the influence, and the Shiseiken is destroyed, and the curse is ended for all time, and he wakes up, and he hugs Maya, and he's like, I'm so sorry, and then Zoro and Luffy pass out, and then we cut to the next day, the Straw Hats are sailing away perfectly fine, Saga's doing pretty okay, and the giant hippo rhinoceros comes out of the ocean and wants to marry the Mary. Roll end credits. I'm not exaggerating any of that. It really does happen that quickly, okay? It's not even a final battle so much as a final slash. There's the scene where Luffy is like, you know, you're gonna be the greatest swordsman. You can cut anything. And Zoro is like jumping in the air, I guess honestly, he uses a technique that is very similar to like the blaze technique that he uses to defeat Ryuma. Just in terms of aesthetic, it does look very similar to this, and this was years before Thriller Bark, so very interesting here. So he like jumps up, does the sword like this, and he's like, yes, I am the swordsman that can cut anything. I can even cut a friend. So that was kind of an interesting, like, I can cut steel. I can cut anything, even my friend. Slices Saga down, and he falls, and he goes unconscious. Sorry, Barry. Here's a question for everybody involved. Why did the curse end when Zoro cut him? This is a curse that was, like, created by, like, gods and shit that, you know, could only end if Maya sacrificed herself, which she was about to, but she didn't. And so it's like the curse of the gods is controlling Saga. He's become one with it. So all it takes to end this curse is just to cut him really deep. Not even that deep, because he gets cut, and then the curse heals him, and then just disappears. I guess the curse was just terrified of Zoro's presence. That's the best explanation I got for this. Yeah, it's like, I am the cursed blade, the seven-starred sword, created from the blood. 1,000 people had to die to give birth to my power. And then Zoro's just like, yeah, well, I'm a demon. He's like, oh shit, I don't want anything to do with you, man. I'm out of here. And then the curse just leaves. Because it really makes no sense. It's like, yeah, we had to use this magical ritual. We had to set up these balls everywhere and chant, you know? And it's like, that didn't work. The prayer power, that didn't work. But Zoro just slicing the dude really deep, that was the remedy. That was the thing that not only freed Saga from the sword, but also healed his wound in the process so he wouldn't die. Like, I can understand, like, killing Saga and, like, the vessel was gone, but I guess they didn't want to end the movie on a sad note, so Saga's perfectly fine now. He's back to being the normal guy he always was. And that's kind of the most disappointing part of this entire movie. It's not like we learned about what Saga was beforehand. Like, Saga, we got to spend time with him as, like, a normal dude and, like, the kind of virtues that he's embodied. No, he's pretty much possessed from, like, the first 5 minutes of this movie, and it's not until literally the last 5 minutes that we get him, like, originally, like, what he was. Yeah, we see flashbacks and everything, but I don't know, it would have been cooler if we got to spend a little bit of time with him before he turned unabashedly evil for the sake of evil. I mean, that's really what this movie comes down to that's, like, disappointing, I guess. It's just the whole plot thread of, like, an evil sword possessing people and turning them into, like, bloodthirsty zombies. Like, it's a cool idea, it sounds nice, but, like, in terms of a deeper plot or anything, like, really establishing character development or anything, it doesn't really go much more beyond that. Grand Line Review, he did reviews of all of these movies, like, in one video, he did, like, a brief review of all these, and, I was watching his video, and when he talked about the fifth movie, he mentioned that, like, Zoro, you know, he's an interesting character, sure, but he's a lot more quiet, he's a lot more stoic than the other Straw Hats, okay, so having a movie focus on him, it would be a little bit difficult, right? Because Zoro is definitely a character that is a actions speak louder than words kind of guy. Definitely with Zoro, okay? And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, without the other Straw Hats there to, like, really give him a lot of support, it might seem a little bit clumsy. because Zoro doesn't really talk very much. So you have this scene, perfect example, when he goes to see Saga and he like reunites with his childhood friend. Sorry again, reunites with his childhood friend and everything, and it's just like, yeah, go do this thing that makes no sense. And Zoro's like, okay. And it's just like he won't tell the Straw Hats about it, and these are supposed to be his friends. It just seems like Zoro is like really taken out of character in this movie, right? It just does not seem like the way that Zoro would act if he was actually like written by Oda. And Oda did, like all the other movies, came up with the concept art for Saga and Maya and Izaya, and he drew like the cool color page and everything. So that looks nice. I mean, obviously, like any character, you know, so it's like, hey, Oda, we want you to draw a character that would have been like, you know, I don't know, Zoro's childhood friend that he would train with. And Oda was like, okay. And then there you go. There's the Saga. You know, I don't think Oda came up with like the backstory for him or anything like that. I think that was all that department. Oh man. Anyway, I miss anything here? I don't think I did. Oh man. Yeah, just more backstory with maybe them would have been cool. You could have probably cut some time out of Luffy and Zoro running around. I mean, Luffy and Usopp running around the cave. You know, you could have taken some runtime out of that and maybe given a little bit more backstory to Saga. Because I understand it's difficult, because this is a theatrical run movie. You know, it's like around an hour and a half, same as Dead End Adventure was. I get it, but even so, with that runtime, you still have, you know, not a lot that much time relative to introduce a brand new character, especially a character that's related to the Straw Hats, right? So it's not like last movie when we were introduced to Shuraya. Shuraya had no previous connection with any of the Straw Hats. He was just doing his own thing. So when Shuraya showed up, it was like, oh, okay, he's just for this movie, and we're going to find out about him throughout the course of this movie. Because you're doing this whole thing where you're sort of adding to Zoro's backstory or rewriting Zoro's backstory, we really would have had to know a lot more about him. Maybe some sort of, I don't know, maybe like a bonus chapter Oda could have drawn, or maybe like an OVA, like a special movie tie-in OVA. And One Piece has done movie OVAs before, so don't tell me they couldn't have done that. They did, right around this time, they did a freaking tie-in anime filler arc for a video game, for Ocean's Dream. So maybe if there was like an OVA leading up to this movie, where we got to see Zoro training with Kuina and Saga, and that was the setup, and then Kuina died, and then Zoro and Saga pledged to go, and then we see a little bit of their past and how they trained and everything to give us more context, more build up to the character, so that when we actually see him being manipulated by the sword, that would be something interesting in of itself. The whole idea of gods and like magic powers and like getting involved in the One Piece world in that such an overt way, I feel like if this is an actual deity that's getting involved here and creating a holy divine sword, like, you know, this thing should be a lot more difficult to deal with than what it was in the actual movie, which just came down to Zoro slicing Saga one time and ending it, right? You know, this guy Saga, when fused with this divine sword, should really be like some kind of demon devil lord or something. And it's like, well, shit, man, the movie's almost over. Okay, there we go. Also, the fact that Luffy got most of the fight with Saga, that was also kind of disappointing, right? The final scene with Zoro was awesome, and the scene where he was like, you will be the strongest, and I can cut a friend, you know, that was a nice moment. I mean, a movie about Zoro and a cursed holy sword, you could have taken this in a few directions that could have really worked, and instead I think they played it safe when it came to, like, One Piece movies, right? You know, just like, yeah, to get some references to the Skypiea arc, because that's where we're at right now, and overall, though, let's not do anything too ambitious or crazy, and that's really what it came down to. Man, I'm telling you what, we need a One Piece movie that, if you're gonna deal with this, like, possession angle, like some sort of, like, object or entity possessing people to do something like that and become evil, there's more interesting, inventive ways to do it, right? Like, you could maybe have, like, a living thing, like some sort of plant or something, invade an island and take the populace over there. You'd have, like, a lot of really dark imagery or something. That's the One Piece movie I want to see!